Today, we're going to talk about outdated retirement advice, those rules of thumb that you hear about that many, many people are still using, and I'm thinking incorrectly. And I'm going to talk about four in particular that I think need to be updated or thrown out altogether. And I'm also going to bring on a very special guest. We're talking the OG, the original financial guru in the United States. I'm going to bring him on. But before I do that, let's just bring on Tony to welcome Tony to the show. We're talking about outdated retirement advice, rules of thumb. And I want to go through my four that I want to tell people about, specifically why I think it's outdated and how it should be either thrown out or updated. And then I want to bring on a guest. And I think you're going to love it. I'm going to give you an opportunity to guess who it is, but let me just start.
Because I have an idea already. I want to guess.
You do?
Yeah.
All right. So this is a rule that I want to start off by just a statement here, Tony. People should retire at 65 without any debt. They should reduce their risk and then withdraw 4% safely. That statement, I think, has four fundamental flaws in it.
Just four?
If you look at that, yeah, just four. They're all related too. So I'm going to go through each of these. There's the four.
Yeah. There's only four things
rules
listed in that advice.
But there's maybe 10 things wrong with it.
All four are bad. That's great.
But that is passing the math test.
I started working in the financial side of things. You know, my background's radio. I started 13 years ago, basically doing this and working with yourself. And when I started, you want to talk about outdated, you'd think, okay, that was the 80s or the 70s. No, that was 12 years ago when I started. That was it. Yeah, you heard a lot of people say that. I mean, even before I started, I used to hear that all the time. You should retire at 65. You should be debt free, reduce risk, and withdraw 4%. And then I think it went to then it was retire at 66. And now what I hear is you should retire at 67. You should be debt free. You need to reduce risk and withdraw 4%. And I'm not going to name names. Someone goes by the initials DR. I've heard him on the radio, and he's still basically pitching.
Is that your guess, by the way, for the special guest? Is that your guess?
No, that is not my guess. When do you want me to guess?
All right, I'm gonna bring, because I'm gonna go through these, but before I do, I'm gonna bring on who many people consider the original financial guru in the United States, and I'm gonna ask them what their advice is and see. I'm going to tear it apart. Maybe. Who do you think it is, Tony?
If you say the original financial guru, in the
OG guru,
for the United States, the original. I mean, if you're going way back to the original, my first thought that just popped in there was Ben Franklin.
Oh my, Tony, you hit it. Winner. All right, let me bring on
all
Ben
the quotes,
Franklin.
all the financial quotes from him.
Yes. So this is a new experiment, Tony. This is going to be a taste of what's to come. But I'm going to bring on Ben Franklin right now, and we're going to get him to answer the question for us.
I can't believe I was right. I can't believe I got that.
Well, don't get too greedy here. We're gonna see if this works. I'm asking Ben Franklin to come on. Ben Franklin, there he is. Can you see him, Tony?
Oh yeah.
All right.
Looks like he's waiting for you to ask him a question.
He is. Ben Franklin, thanks for joining this conversation. Tony and I are having a conversation about retirement advice in the United States. Are you willing to join us for a few minutes to talk about your feelings on this?
Good sir, I am pleased to lend my voice. Retirement, as you call it, should be a season of prudent ease after long labor. Save a portion of each year's earnings. As Poor Richard counsels, a penny saved is a penny earned. Let that saving become a modest yet steady income, enough to cover daily needs without fear. Use the time to pursue useful pursuits, learning, public service, or modest crafts, for an idle mind gathers dust. Balance frugality with small comforts. Better is a little with content than much with contention. Consider what virtues will guide you in those later years: temperance, industry, and prudence. A plan that secures your needs frees you to aid others and enjoy modest pleasures. How do you presently allocate your savings toward such a future? And what pursuits do you hope to engage in when you retire?
Exactly. So, Mr. Franklin, your advice has become synonymous and worldwide. But I want to ask you well, before I do, I'm going to ask you when you retired. How old were you when you retired?
Good sir, I never set a single day as retirement. At 24, I sold my share of the Pennsylvania Gazette, and by 42, I had largely given up the daily trade of printing. Thereafter, I devoted myself to public service, diplomacy, science, civic institutions, until my health declined in my 80th year. Thus, rather than a sudden retirement, I spent my later life in quieter, yet purposeful pursuits.
I heard and I've read that you retired in your 40s from the printing business. Is that not true?
Indeed, by my own account, I withdrew from the daily grind of the printing trade at about 42 years of age. I had already sold my share of the Pennsylvania Gazette in my 20s, and, around my early 40s, I let a trusted partner, David Hall, manage the shop while I turned my energies toward public service, scientific experiments, and civic projects. Though I ceased the hands-on work, I retained an interest and earned a modest income from the business. Thus, one might call it a retirement from printing, though I never ceased to be a proprietor altogether.
Okay, so we're going to talk more specifically about that with Ben. I'm going to do a one-on-one with him about his retirement. So before we let you go, Ben, I want to ask you, if you had to pick one particular piece of advice that you would give to retirees in the United States, what would that retirement advice be? Just one.
If I may give but one counsel to those in the gentle season of retirement, it would be this: continue to practice industry and prudence each day, and keep your wants modest. As I have long said, better is a little with content than much with contention.
Thank you for your time, Ben. We're going to bring you back. Like I said, I'm going to have a personal conversation about your retirement. Tony, do you want to say anything to Ben before he goes?
I thank you both for the dialogue. May your retirement be guided by industry, prudence, and modest contentment. Farewell, gentlemen.
Wow.
There it is, Tony. So,
right from the
his
words,
advice.
I'm surprised at how well he is. I mean, he right into the camera. I didn't know he'd be that experienced on camera, but he was great.
So his advice was, when you retire, don't retire. Keep doing something.
Yes.
And is that outdated?
Yeah. He said industry. In other words, but in the in the context he uses it, that means stay industrious is what he meant. And
don't stay idle, he said.
Yeah, don't sit idle, stay industrious. He retired from his main business, the printing business, but he looked at scientific pursuits and public service. So that's great.
Yes. Yeah. And I'm going to do an entire show with him about his retirement, because not many people realize he retired at 41 or 42.
He sold a business in his 20s. That's amazing.
Yeah. And then he didn't sell his business to that guy. He let him run it while he pursued science and politics.
Smart.
He still owned the business during that time. So I'm going to do a whole show on that. And that is fascinating. But I'm going to say his advice is still accurate, and I'm a big believer of it. We've done shows on it, how you just can't retire and do nothing. You have to do something, or else you'll be miserable. A lot of people anyway.
Right.
Okay. All right. So, Tony, outdated retirement advice: retire at 65. You said now the new guidance is retire at 67.
That's what I've heard. I mean, but a lot of people are the majority. The average American now, I just read, retires at 62. But yet I hear a lot of financial people say you should wait to retire until 67, your full retirement age for Social Security.
And a lot of people associate retirement with claiming Social Security. That is bad guidance. Just because your retirement doesn't mean you have to claim Social Security. You can, those two do not have to go hand in hand. Just like retire at 65, most people do that because of Medicare. Just because you don't have health insurance through your work anymore, that's not the key to retirement. You don't retire because you can jump on Medicare, which I think a lot of people do. A lot of people oh, I can't work. I can't stop working because I know I lose health insurance, or I can't stop working because I have to turn on Social Security. Again, I think that's outdated.
Yeah.
This concept of retirement at 65 is outdated. It needs to change. And Ben Franklin didn't retire at 65.
No.
And, so this idea of retiring early and switching careers or doing something different, everyone's saying, oh, that's new. The FIRE movement's new. Financial independence, retire early. No, Ben Franklin did it in 250 years ago, right? So let's not get crazy here, right? So I think this idea of 65, I think it's too late for a lot of people. I think people should be retiring earlier than that. Maybe some later, but I don't like this idea, especially when it's tied to health insurance.
Sure.
We've done shows on that. I can go ranting on retiring and health insurance and all that.
Yeah, let's not get into the whole healthcare discussion today, Dan. But I do want to clarify something you said, and I agree for the most part, and I'm glad you said it, and that is when you start taking Social Security and when you retire, don't have to go hand in hand. However, especially you can retire and wait to take Social Security, but what you should never do, right? And correct me on this. What you should never do is take Social Security before you retire from your full-time job, though, right?
Not necessarily. I don't use the word never. Don't use the word never.
Okay. All right.
You can do it, but there are not too many benefits to claiming Social Security and continuing to work. There's earnings limits, but you might be in a married situation where you need that to open the window for your spouse. So there might be some situations where you can reduce your workload and claim Social Security. So there might be, but yeah, generally speaking, you don't want to retire and keep working and claim Social Security. Usually the math doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
So the second piece is retiring debt-free. This was the biggie. I'm going to pay off my house. You can't retire while you have a mortgage. Grasp the pearls. You have a mortgage, you can't retire.
I hear that on some people's radio shows all the time. You have to pay off all your debt before you retire. That's the best thing to do. So what's wrong with that? That sounds great. Most people are
does sound great.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with it. Like, you're not going to go bad if you pay off, if you have debt-free retirement. That's not a bad thing, right? But when you are delaying retirement because you're trying to pay off a mortgage, or, which a lot of people do, they'll raid their retirement funds to pay off the mortgage so they can retire, and then they get hit with a tax liability that was foolishly done now, you can't put a price on the feeling of being debt-free, right? And I'm not questioning that.
Yeah,
if
we
that's
hear
what it's going to take you to retire,
yeah,
to feel good about retirement. But when you do the math, paying off a 2.5% mortgage with $50,000 left in it by taking $50,000 out of your 401k so you can retire, it's probably not the smartest move.
No, in fact, it's probably the math doesn't work. My wife and I have a 2.9% mortgage. So there's good debt and bad debt. And I know there are some financial people out there that disagree with this, but I believe there is good debt. And they're like, how could there be good debt? Well, you just said it. If my wife and I have a 2.9% interest mortgage and we have $75,000 left to pay on our house, whatever it is, we would be crazy to take money that we have saved up that's earning minimum 8% a year right now in the markets, in our IRAs or 401ks, and use it to pay off our house. Because why wouldn't I use the bank's money and let my money earn interest? I wouldn't earn any interest on that money, and I would start off behind in what I need for retirement. It wouldn't be in there taking advantage of compounding interest.
Yeah,
right?
and we've done shows on this. We've done shows on keeping the mortgage in retirement.
Yeah.
The other issue with this, Tony, is if you pay off all your debt in the house, then you have a whole bunch of asset and equity in the home that you can't use to live. So a lot of people feel I can't retire, I don't have any money, yet they're sitting on a few $100,000 of equity in the home. There's a disconnect there.
Yeah.
So this idea of retiring debt free is kind of old school. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying
Right.
sometimes it can be, if you're hard and fast about it, it could be not really beneficial for you.
Sure.
So rethinking that is important.
Right.
And the next one is reducing risk as you age. That's, the rule of 100. As you get older, 100 minus your age, that should be at risk. The rest should be in safety.
The
I
old
don't like this.
60-40 split.
Yeah. And as you get older, you're going to buy more risk,
Reverse
lower
it,
risk
by
assets.
the time you retire, it should be 30, 70 or whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
You hear that all the time.
Yeah. And I think it's bogus as well.
Yeah.
Reducing risk as you age. I think people's risk tolerances generally go down as they get older. They're like, I don't want to lose anymore, especially because I'm not working. So I get that, but their risk capacity actually goes up, meaning they can afford to take the risk. And I see the opposite. I see as you get older, you potentially, I'm not saying everyone, but a lot of people can be getting more risky, putting more of their assets in a risk category because they don't necessarily need it, especially if they have their income covered. They can have more for the future, for those maybe potential long-term care expenses, or to leave to the kids. I think there's this old rule of thumb of reducing as you get older the risk. I think it should be the opposite. They call it a rising glide path, meaning your income, your risk assets actually increase as you age, and that's mostly because you're spending down the safe assets. So as a proportion, the money you have at risk goes up. I don't think it's everybody. I think you have to, and we've done shows on this. You have to have that conversation and say, what can I tolerate? What can I afford? And how do those mix?
Everybody's
And
situation is going to be different there. I mean, there isn't a rule of thumb like the rule of 100. I like that you brought that up because these rules don't work for everybody. And some
Right.
people might need to do the opposite. So,
Right.
but not
Especially
everybody.
if you're retiring early. Especially if you're retiring early,
Yeah.
Tony. If you're retiring in your 50s, you might have 40 years. You can't put it all under the pillow. You have to have some growth. So you need that risk, right? And the timeline, when you retire, you're not going to die in the next 2 years. That's the hope anyway. So you're going to have a long time in retirement. You can't go all on the risk-free side. The math doesn't work. In fact, the math shows the opposite. And I think that advice needs to be updated. But again, it's simple and it's common and it's tough to argue against. Oh, of course, I'm going to slow down and be less risky. No, it sounds like I'm being sensational when I say that that's wrong, but I'm really not.
Right. It makes
and
sense.
Of course, the biggie, Tony, the 4% rule.
I've always thought that was bogus. Even 12 years ago, I thought that's ridiculous. That wouldn't work. I looked at what I had and what I thought my wife and I might have when we retire. And I'm like, well, that's not going to work for us. So.
Because you're doing the reverse engineering it and saying, well, if I can only take 4% out, I need 3 million because, right?
Right.
And this is the problem.
Yeah.
Again, it's this.
So my magic number is $6 million. Well, that's not going to happen unless Dan writes me a check, unless I can get Dan Wendell to write me a personal check. And I don't, yeah, you've said no before.
I think was it Ben Franklin that said you can't squeeze blood out of a wooden nickel? I don't know. Don't come to me. Yes.
Something out of a turnip. Yeah.
The 4% rule. I think it was, what was it? Made in the 90s. Bengen, I think is his name. And it's been updated. I think it's even been lowered.
It has
Ray. I don't know.
No, it's lowered. It's lowered. It's like
it's
2.9 or 3% now. It's like in the 2s now. Yeah.
Really depends on who you ask.
So you have to have even more, that means, because they've lowered the number. Right. So in order to hit, if your goal is 50,000 a year, you got to have more, because instead of the 4% rule, it's the 2.9%. Right. And it just that number keeps lowering on how much you're able to take out and not run out of money in retirement. And so that rule of thumb is that one's, I think, really antiquated. I think that rule worked great in the 80s or 90s, but yeah.
And the problem is people just get complacent about it. And I think the advisors are like, oh, that's easy. The less we take out, the easier it is for me to do my job, make sure they don't run out of money.
And
That
that's
fear
if
of
you
running
have
out.
everything. That's if you leave everything in your 401k or IRA and just let it ride in the market and then take 4% out. That's
Yeah, the
basically what people
60-40.
were saying.
Right.
And then so
The
you have no
60-40
money in
portfolio.
other things, no money in principal protected. It's all in the market, and you just take
Right.
4% out. That's nowadays. I don't think that can happen. I mean, I just don't think that would work, right?
I think it's a strategy that basically said let's make sure this lasts 20 years at a 60-40 portfolio. But people don't do it that way. They also don't continue to spend as they age. There's another rule of thumb. People increase their spending as they get older. I think it's the opposite. I don't see that. Now I think they spend more in the beginning, and so there's that fear of running out. But all these are integrated, Tony. The retiring debt free means that all your money's in the home, so you don't even count that as an asset to withdraw from. So now you need even more outside of the home. You reduce your risk as you age. Okay, so now my returns are going to be even lower. So now I need even more because the 4%. Like, no, you can build a portfolio. Why not 5%? Why not 6%? Well, 6%. I can take. No, I can't. I'll run out of money. How do you know that? But based on what? Based on the 4% rule. If I take 6%, that's 50% more I'm taking out. That's not. Well, what if you took out more when the market's up and took out less when the market's down? Well, that's too complicated. How does what is that rule? It's the 3 to 6% rule? 3 to 6? I mean, this is the problem with this advice is that you're trying to fit everyone in this cookie cutter option. And the cookie cutter is retire at 65, go on Medicare, reduce your risk, pay off your debts, and withdraw 4%. You can't do it that way. That's lazy.
Right.
And you need to get someone to actually run the numbers for you because you'll be surprised. I always say this, Tony. People are surprised when they meet me because they're worried they're never going to be able to retire. And when they meet me, I often will say, why don't you retire today? And it blows people's minds. Now, retiring today may not mean you get this extravagant lifestyle, but I could show you a lifestyle. Maybe you're happy with it. And if you can retire today, does it work? And I'll tell you now, it's not going to be wait until Medicare, reduce your risk, pay off your mortgage, and withdraw 4%. It's going to be completely different than that.
Right. And each person's is going to be completely different. I mean, that's the bottom line here, really. But boy, there's so much advice like that that's outdated. And I think there's still a lot of people who are, my age or get headed toward where they're really thinking and starting to plan about retirement, who do think 65 is still the ultimate age.
Yes.
It's just they don't know because they haven't listened to the Dolphin Financial Radio show. They're still back in the 80s when people were saying, or the 70s when it was 65, because that's what their parents did or told them. A lot of people don't have a grasp on modern retirement planning, and that's why you need a trusted financial services professional. I really believe that in the 70s and 80s, you could DIY retirement planning. And
you're talking about the 1970s and not the 1770s, right?
So Dan, I'm not that old, but Ben
Franklin, come on, Tony, stick with me.
I can't believe Ben Franklin. Actually, I looked it up. He lived until 84, which for that time period, that is, I mean, he lived until 84, and you see all the portraits, the paintings of him. He was kind of a chubby guy like myself. Yeah. I mean, he was not slim and buff and ripped. I'm like, he lived a long time for that time, that age, that period.
We didn't have pizza back then and processed food.
It's the pizza and the Diet Coke.
Interestingly, I am going to do a show with him. Interestingly enough, Tony, if I'm doing my math right, he lived longer in retirement than he did working.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
He was 84. So it's not like he retired and died the next day.
Yeah. If worst case, I mean, it was about half and half. I mean, he worked half his life, and the last half of his life, he was retired, but public office, and I mean, out there flying a kite in a lightning storm. I mean, come on.
I'll save those questions I'll bring you back on to asking questions about that. I don't know if that's true. But yeah, Tony, really, the rule of thumb, the advice, I think they cause more anxiety than they do help people. It's nice to have some general guidelines, but I do believe it's causing more anxiety. It's causing people to retire later than they could. They get nervous more. It's sensational. It sells the headlines. It's so much easier to say the 4% rule than to say, like I said, the 3 to 6% rule, right? Like what? Because then you have to explain it, and then it's difficult math, right?
Yeah,
But now
I was told there would be no math. So
right. Well, you got the only quiz today was who you think is the OG financial guy, and you nailed it, Tony.
And you didn't even give me any hints before. I had no idea what Dan was talking about. He likes to surprise me. He likes to try to catch me off guard. He always hopes to catch me, he thought I would get that wrong. I almost, in my second thought, which I thought about switching to, but then I'm like, no, because you said the OG, and I thought Warren Buffett. He's probably but I'm like, who's quoted more and who's the earlier? Ben Franklin and Warren Buffett. Honestly, those are the two I hear quoted the most when it comes to financial advice on financial radio shows, by people in magazine articles. Yeah.
Well, maybe I'll try and get Warren on next. But
we should get Warren as a guest on. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'll work on that. Actually, you work on that, Tony. I'll work on Ben Franklin. I'm also looking at Confucius. He's on the list. So again, Tony, thanks for a good show. Time to update everyone's advice. Time to update Tony's wardrobe. And thank you for another show, Tony. Well, next week, I guess, right? That's what we do weekly. Yeah. Next week, everyone. Thank you.
All matters discussed in today's show are for informational purposes only.
This show is not investment advice.
Dan Riddle nor Dolphin Financial Group are affiliated or endorsed by any government agency.
Investment advisory services are offered through Dolphin Wealth Management, Inc., a registered investment advisor in the state of Florida.
Insurance products and services are offered through Dolphin Insurance, Inc.
Dolphin Wealth Management, Inc. and Dolphin Insurance, Inc. are affiliated companies doing businesses as Dolphin Financial Group.
You should talk to someone at Dolphin Financial Group before implementing any of these strategies or ideas.